Hello, hello! The final Stranger Things episode has been released, and now, with all the dust settled, the question arises: did it deliver? Yes. Thank you very much for watching. No, okay, I do have more words on the subject. In order to answer the question, firstly, we have to determine what makes a good series finale. I posit that it needs three things. A. To give us a sense of closure for everyone. B. To let something open-ended. C. To be one last chance for us to hang out with the characters we have come to love. In that sense, for example, Parks and Recreation was a great series finale because everyone was hanging out like they used to, even though they all had technically moved on. We still got to find out how everyone ended up, and we had something fun to interpret the way we wanted. Friends, on the other hand, was not a great finale, even though we did get a sense of closure for everyone, and we had something to look forward to. Everyone was running around doing different things, in the hospital or the airport or their flats. They didn't all get to hang out until after the episode, when we weren't watching. Okay, back to Stranger Things. Yes, we got a sense of closure for everyone. The kids graduated, the young adults did some growing up, the older adults got to move on with their lives, and a new party was formed. There was also something left open-ended that we can think about and debate. And we got to hang out with everyone in the usual way. The first hour of the finale was pure Stranger Things. There was a harebrained plan that needed to be followed to the T. The party split into smaller groups, and everyone got to play to their strength, coordinating to the last minute. There was a race against time, the stakes were through the sky, and so on. So yes, as a series finale, it worked. Now, what about from a narrative perspective? Did it work? Yes. No, not yet. The finale was consistent with what Stranger Things has been doing for 5 long seasons. We had a couple of minor twists, both in the revelation that the Upside Down was just a wormhole, and in the fact that the Mindflayer was a separate thing molded with Henry, which ultimately didn't change anything. I'll add here that the show was never about twists. Its most meaningful twist was the Henry Vecna reveal, and that was only at the end of last season. Before that, they mostly relied on dumb monsters and cruel military types for entertainment. We had our face-off, 11 with Vecna, and eventually everyone with Vecna, and the sweet revenge of Joyce cutting the veiny bastard's head. We had grand sacrifices. Nance, the de facto leader of the civilian group, making the tough choice to be the bait for the monster, and of course Elle, killing herself or pretending to kill herself, depending on your viewpoint, to save everyone from lifelong persecution. We had our one-to-ones settling old and new scores with Nancy and the boys themselves, Will and Mike, Joyce and Will, Hop and Eleven, and even Max and Holly. We had our fan service and our callbacks. We even had the raising of the stakes. It's no longer about saving Will Byers, Max, Hawkins, Holly, thwarting communism. It's about saving the entire planet. I think it all more or less worked. Now, what about some of the criticisms that have been out there these last few days? The biggest one, I guess, is that nobody ever dies. I had predicted that we'd get a maximum of 1 to 2 deaths, although I was wrong about who would die. And indeed, we got 1 death. I am not even counting Callie, nobody other than 11 cared for her. We in fact got the big one, the hero dying. Now, if you believe that 11 didn't die, then you clearly didn't want her to die. That means you don't want anyone to die, hence you got what you wanted. If you don't believe, then you got the death you wanted. If a show kills off its biggest character, they don't need to kill anyone else. They've done the work, they've given us the consequences. This is Stranger Things, not Game of Thrones. They literally killed 1 character per season. If you want more death, watch something else. Then, for anyone looking for a tight storyline with no plot holes, you haven't been watching this show the last 10 years. The show has very successfully prioritized thrills and chills, relationships and character development over strictly making sense. Remember when they stopped in the middle of the world ending to sing that one-hit wonder from Neverending Story? No, no complaints about plot holes and not making sense. I'm sorry that you thought you were watching a 5-star show when really you were watching a 3-star show from the beginning. 3-star shows are great and can be great sources of entertainment. Then we get the too easy criticism. Where were all the demogorgons, demodogs and demobots? I agree that the Mindflayer's planet was very empty. It could have had some demodogs, but honestly, this was the boss fight. I don't want our characters lose time jumping on mushrooms and collecting coins. If you really need a story to explain the emptiness, consider that Henry was too busy trying to collapse 2 planets together, keep some idiotic 11-year-olds entertained, while having several people poke into his brain to be able to whistle for demodogs too. The final D&D game that left the door 3 inches open for 11's future might be construed as having your cake and eating it, only if you choose to see it that way. Personally, I think that these are the tears of kids that don't believe that their friend survived because she couldn't have, but they really want to believe. For me, the evidence clearly points to Elle dying. You can also choose to interpret the evidence as Elle not dying, but this really isn't the Sopranos ending, where they left us in the lurch. This takes you all the way to the end. You just have to do the interpreting rather than it being spelled out for you. And I guess there's the whole woke thing. If your problem with pacing hinges on that scene being a couple of minutes too long, which it probably was, but you had no issue with, say, Hopper and Eleven having the same fight for over 4 seasons, then you most likely don't have a problem with pacing, but rather with how open-minded you really aren't. How many minutes are the queers allowed in a show that, if my math is correct, lasted 2,685 minutes? By the way, not processing his emotional baggage like Will did meant that this fool was very easily deceived by Vecna and almost got everyone killed. So there might be some value in dealing with demons. In conclusion, the Stranger Things finale was commensurate to the show, and I think it is much closer to an endgame ending rather than a Game of Thrones one. It was a thrilling ride that was just the right flavor of bittersweet. And that's it for me. I'm going to go listen to some David Bowie and cry a bit more. If you enjoyed this, please consider liking or subscribing. As always, thanks for watching.